Is it possible that there's something we do not fully understand? The understanding of which would change everything. And it's in that searching for the answers to that question that I created my life's purpose. We're lost, or we suffer a loss, and then we are found, or we find something that wasn't there before we suffered the loss. God gives us the freedom to create a purpose that makes sense to our soul. When we learn to love those with whom we do not agree, now we've come to understand the nature of pure love. Pure love is who we are, because each of us is an individuation of divinity.
It's hard to say I love you.
Welcome to America Lost and Found. My name is Janelle Rapp. My sister Gina Boss disappeared on October 17th, 2000. In the 25 years since she vanished, her disappearance taught me that I did not have to miss out on my own life because I miss her. Though America Lost and Found has its inspirational roots in stories of missing persons, the grief their families face, their lessons, and their triumphs, this show is not just about missing people. If we are breathing, we face loss, but it does not have to define us. We feature guests who have learned to use loss instead of having loss use them. Our guests share tools that help them navigate their loss. Some will resonate with you, some may not. Our hope is that as you watch, like, and subscribe, you will not only gain tools for life, but you will be inspired to turn your loss into beautiful. Neale Donald Walsch has written 40 books on contemporary spirituality and its practical application in everyday life, including his new book, God Talk, Experiences of Humanity's Connections with a Higher Power. Neale is the best-selling author of the Conversations with God series, which 7 of the 9 books made the New York Times bestseller list. Book 1 remained on that list for 134 weeks, and I personally understand why. His titles have been translated into 37 languages and have been read by millions of people around the world. Please welcome Neale Donald Walsch.
Thank you, Janelle.
Your Majesty.
Now you got to tell them the joke, or they won't understand. I'm going to tell you the joke, folks. Janelle asked me, "How should I refer to you when we're on the air? Just call you Neale?" And I said, "No, Your Majesty," as a joke, of course. So now she does it in real life. You got to love it. You got to love it. It's lovely to be here with you, and thank you for the opportunity to share this time with you. How may I be of service to you, Janelle?
I love that you say that. Now, I've watched a lot of your YouTube videos, and you say that. And it really resonates with me because I feel that that is our purpose, is to be of service to those around us. And the fact that you say that so much, it is... I don't know. It's such an inspiration. I feel like when you say that on every podcast that I've heard you on, that other people have to go, wait a minute, am I doing that? And so I want to thank you for saying that. It really makes a difference.
You're very kind. You're very kind to make those comments. But Janelle, I want to make it clear to the audience that when I am being of service to another person, I'm serving myself. I'm serving my soul's agenda. And so being of service to another is not a selfless act. Every service to another, in my experience, is a selfish act in that it provides me with an opportunity to once more demonstrate and fulfill, experience, and express the highest thought I've ever had about who I really am. And that's why I came to this planet. That's why we all came here, in my understanding. So just so that people really hear me clearly, I don't feel that I'm being selfless when I make that statement. How may I serve you is my way of saying, in what way can I show up on this planet as the next grandest version of the greatest vision ever I held about who I am? I think, by the way, that idea didn't come to me out of the clear blue sky. I was invited to think of life in that way in my conversations with God. So that's why I say yes, I do say to everyone, not just to people with whom I do podcasts or interviews. If I'm in the grocery store, if I'm at the post office, if I'm simply walking down the street and someone runs into me that I may know, or a stranger asks me for a few dollars because he's homeless or whatever happens in my life. If I'm in the grocery store, I will say to the person, how may I serve you? If I encounter someone who seems to be having a challenge or a difficulty or could use some help in some way or another. So thank you for those kind words that you said to me in response to my question. And so my question is now repeated. Dear Janelle, how may I serve you?
Well, you just served me really well. I got such a buzz off of that. That resonated also with me because I think that's so true. You know, it's to be of service is really a selfish act. It is serving ourselves and our own purpose and our reason for being. And wow. So early on in this conversation, I'm already buzzing. So thank you. We're done.
I'm already
We're
buzzing
done.
too.
We're good.
I'm already buzzy too, but not for the same reason. Just having a little bit of buzz here in the cup.
A little coffee?
Yeah,
Coffee buzz?
No, it's a little bit of water. People think it's water, but it's just clear liquid.
All right.
Yeah.
I see where you're going.
Yeah, but not to worry about it. I'm totally in control.
So the comedian Neale Donald Walsch enters the room.
Did you know that I did actually, honestly, this is a truth statement. I did stand-up comedy for a year and a half of my life.
I read that about you.
Yeah, I
That's
was a
pretty
stand-up
awesome.
comedian. Yeah, in Milwaukee.
Well, you're back. You're back.
Well, you once a comic, always a comic, I guess. You just can't tear the comedy out of a comic.
That's true. That's true. It's just natural. It flows.
I enjoy life.
That's important. That's important to find ways to enjoy life.
Sure, especially when you get to be my age.
Which is so young.
Yes, it is. It feels young.
Yeah.
I feel very young, but when you get to be my age, or at least when I shouldn't speak for the human population, but when I got to the age at which I now find myself, I realized that it is important to really bring the joy of life to your life. Because, I watched my dad, God bless him. I watched my father when he was my age turn into a robot. I mean, he was watching soap operas. He had nothing to do with his life. He had retired at 65. So by the time he got to be my age, I'm currently 81, which is, by the way, your cue to notice that, to say you don't look anywhere near 81.
You don't. No, you don't. That's exactly what I was going to say.
You should say that. But my dear dad, God bless him, he really was reduced to watching soap operas. I visited him, of course, in his elder years, and I watched him just fade away because he had retired and he had nothing to do with his life. So I'm very grateful to have found meaningful work to do in my life, even in my 80s. Very happy about that.
I think that's really an important point. The whole of our lives, we have a purpose. It doesn't end at 65. And, I admire that. The fact that you are still continuing to reach out and be selfish in servicing mankind. I really admire that. I have friends. I'm at the age where, people are retiring, and I have friends who are done. And I'm not criticizing them, but because we're not supposed to judge. But for me, I feel like I don't know if I'm ever going to be done until I'm done, until my last breath. I have to keep doing it in a selfish way, again, to fulfill my purpose, because I feel really like I'm here for a reason, and the purpose is right now, like in this moment. It's every moment, and I need to be present and accounted for so I can fulfill that purpose, and not just sitting down and going, well, I'm going to take a break now. I'm going to go on a lot of vacations. Not that I don't want a vacation here and there, but again, I really admire that you are doing that. I want to be like you when I grow up. Sir.
Most people don't know what their purpose is, though. Yeah, I mean, at least I don't want that to sound arrogant, but just a humble observation that I've made through the years, especially over the last 30 years since my book was published. 30 years ago, last month, was the anniversary of the publication of my first book. And what I've noticed across those years, Janelle, is that many people really don't know what they're doing here. That is, they don't have any connection, they haven't fully embraced the fact that they are not their body, they're not their mind, they're a spiritual entity having a body and a mind. These are pieces of equipment, just tools that we're using, at least in my understanding, tools that the soul is using to complete its agenda. But my observation of myself in my 30s, 20s, in my 40s, until I wasn't, 52 years old, until I really woke up to what I'm saying to you now. I threw the first 30 years of my adult life away, in a sense, because I really didn't have any idea what I was really doing here. I thought my life was about, get the guy, get the girl, get the car, get the job, get the house, get the spouse, get the better job, get the better car, get the better spouse, get the better spouse, get the better spouse, get the better spouse, which I wound up doing several times, actually. And then, finally get the gray hair, get the retirement watch, get the cruise tickets, get the illness, and then get the heck out. And that's what I thought life was about. I thought, okay, do the best you can and make a go of it, But I had no idea that I was here with a spiritual agenda. When I was given that information in what I've come to call my conversations with God, Janelle, everything changed in my whole life. As the French would say, raison d'être. My whole reason for being was altered dramatically. And I'm so grateful, because it made my 50s, my 60s, and my 70s, and hopefully many more of my 80s, meaningful and worthwhile, which I never would have expected. Honestly, it's kind of a reverse of most people's lives. My life really began for me in a rich and fulfilling way when I was 52. So I'm very happy that I had the experience. Thank you, God. And I'm very joyful that I'm able to say to people who are watching this podcast, guys, until you really understand the true purpose of life, which has nothing to do with your career, your livelihood, your income, all that stuff that we think that life needs to be about. When we start paying attention to our spiritual agenda, everything changes for the better. In my experience, I could be wrong, Janelle, about all of that. Even if I am, I'm going to hell, I guess.
Well, I don't think you are. I think you're touching on something that every soul needs to find for themselves. And I'm glad that you're a voice for them out there, and you're willing to keep putting it out there. I know for myself, when I was 3 years old, I thought I knew what I was here for. I really did. And it never ended. It never stopped. I thought I was here to do music and that it had to help people. And I went through my life with that in mind. And I felt like I never got there. Like I wasn't helping. I thought it was some big pinnacle moment, when I would reach it. Kind of like what you were talking about, the better spouse, the better job, the better this, the better house, whatever it might be. And I never got there with my music. I never got there where I felt like I was really helping people. And then my sister disappeared. And then I found all of the skills that I'd learned being a solo artist, the booking, the PR, all that came together to help families of the missing get media attention for their loved ones. So then I thought, okay, now it's very sad. I'm still sad that my sister disappeared. It's sad that she didn't get to stay around with me. But I felt like her disappearance had a reason and had a purpose, right? That together we're like linked and we created this thing. And then, after many years it's been 25 years of doing this work. But probably 10, 15 years ago, I started saying, no, I'm still not there. I'm not at my pinnacle, whatever that thing is, whatever that pinnacle is. And finally, I had been walking, and I walk a lot. It's like meditative for me. And one day it was like, your purpose is whatever's in front of you. It is not this big thing that you think it is. Stop chasing your purpose. It's right now. Who can you help? Who can you love right now? And today, I think it was you that said it. I was listening to one of your podcasts. Did you say, love who's in front of you?
Yes.
And so that just struck me, and like that really again sent me to another level of, all right, it's almost like when you hear these things, you can take a breath again. Like you can finally breathe, because up till then you're like, I got to get to this place where I finally reached my purpose. And then when you hear something like that, like this is like the third time during our 16 minutes together that I feel a buzz. It's like, okay, it's just right now. Love who is in front of me, who is with me right now. Love that person.
And by the way, not just love that person, but love them even if you disagree with them dramatically about politics or spirituality or any aspect of their lives. When we learn to love those with whom we do not agree, now we've come to understand the nature of pure love, which is, in my view, who we really are. So what I've been doing the past few years is running around the place, all over the planet, frankly, just inviting people to find a way to disagree agreeably. Then we can eliminate the alienation that we are seeing so much of on our planet now. Something that most people don't know, but I researched it and discovered that we've had violent conflict, we've had war on this planet for all but 5% of recorded history. That is, somewhere on the planet or another, we are constantly killing each other, constantly at war. What kind of a civilization does that? And we're doing it right up to this very day. We think that we're civilized. We think we are an advanced civilization. And we're killing thousands of people during the time that you and I are on the air. So somebody has to stand up and say, wait a minute, is it possible that there's something we don't fully understand here about life? About who we are, about why we're here, to say nothing of this thing that some people call God? Is it possible that there's something we do not fully understand, the understanding of which would change everything? And my answer to that question is obviously yes. So let's take a look at what it is we might have a new understanding of, and see if we can't step into that, or as Mr. Gandhi would have said, be the change you wish to see.
That's great.
You know, I
Can you
didn't mean,
tell me more about pure love?
yeah, I'd be happy to, Janelle. Thank you for asking that question. Because since I've had my conversations with God experience, I've been asked by many, many people, um, how would you define God? You know, what is your definition of the highest power? You know, here, this is something that many people don't know, Janelle, but sociologists over the past 20 years have been taking a survey, and they've gone to virtually every country on the planet with a single question, a one question survey. Do you believe in a higher power? And Janelle, 8 out of 10 people answer yes. That's 80% of the people from country to country, from culture to culture, say that yes, they agree, they believe in a higher power. So while we all agree there's more going on here than meets the eye, we don't all agree on what is that higher power? What does it want? What does it do if it doesn't get what it wants? What's the whole story about? And I'm using that as a way to back into my answer to your question about pure love, because I ask God the same questions that many people are asking. Who are you and what do you want? Come on, God, if there really is a God in heaven, just give me a straight answer, will you? Who are you and what do you want? Oh, and while we're at it, God, what do you do when you don't get what you want? Do you really send us to hell? Even for the smallest thing? I mean, like missing Mass on Sunday, which is what I was told when I was 9 years old, that if you miss Mass on Sunday and don't confess your sin before you die, you could even die on the way to confessional. But if you get hit by a car on the way into church, you're going to hell because you missed Mass on Sunday. That's called by the Catholic Church a mortal sin. So I asked God, okay, you know, who are you? And God said, Neale, you can define divinity in 2 words: pure love. So my answer to your question about pure love is that pure love is who we are, because each of us is an individuation of divinity. So each of us is comprised, or if you please, is made up of the same energy that makes up what we call God, pure love. Now, you know, when I say this in front of an audience, Janelle, I have to tell you that somebody usually gets up at the back of the room, some guy will say, oh, Neale, come on. We've been really listening to you for 26 minutes for you to tell us that God is love. Everybody understands that. I mean, all the world's religions, doctrinal differences aside, all the world's religions agree that God is love. And I have to say to my friend, wait a minute, I didn't say God is love. I said God is pure love. Oh, my friend in the back of the room will say, what's the difference? The difference is that pure love needs, expects, requires, and demands nothing in return. What is pure love? Pure love is a love that says to the ones that we love, I love what I see, not what I get. But you know what's sad for me, Chanel? I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but for the first half of my adult life, I loved in the other way. I loved what I got. I loved the other person because of what I got from them, which was just a way of loving myself. I was just using them as a way of loving myself. Only when I had my conversations with God that I finally learned how to love another person if I got nothing in return. I love you because of what I see, not because of what I get from you. That's what's made my current marriage the most wonderful experience of my life, because I've been married for 17 years now, which doesn't sound like a big deal to many people, but for me, it's a record. Because I was going through relationship after relationship after relationship, thinking that, okay, I was in a trade deal. I thought that relationships were like trade deals between countries. You give me what I want, I'll give you what you want.
Right.
But I discovered from God what pure love is really all about. God said to me, Neale, the most important message to the world that I would send you is, you've got me all wrong. And I said to God, okay, fair enough. If you think we've got you all wrong, what is the wrong that we are thinking? What's the mistake we're making? And God said, Neale, you guys down there on earth think that your relationship with God is transactional. My relationship with you is not transactional. I don't give you what you want only if you give me what I want. It's not a transaction. I give you what you want. Not even if you don't give me what I want. That's not the reason. Neale, sweetheart, there's nothing that I want. I am, in fact, the highest power in the universe. What could I want from you? So there's nothing that I want, that I need, that I require, that I demand, and nothing I would punish you for if I don't get what you think that I want. And I said to God, wow, this is too good to be true. Are you telling me that I go to heaven even if I don't give you what you want? This is too good to be true. To which God replied, sweetheart, if God can't be too good to be true, who can? So, okay, I said, I got it. God said, now, since you understand that my relationship with you is not transactional, are you willing to love the person on the pillow next to you in the same way? Can you say to that person, I don't love you if, I love you because of what I see over there, not what I get from you.
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful.
That's what I mean by pure love. Which is all contained in the book. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Go ahead.
But it's all contained in a book I wrote on the subject called The God Solution. Because it's God's solution to what's going on in the world today. So I wrote a book called The God Solution, which, by the way, I give people for free. I don't give them a hard copy, but if they want me to upload the book to them, I will upload a copy of The God Solution to anybody who asks for it. All you have to do is write me an email, and my email address is impossible to forget. Neale@NealeDonaldWalsch.com. Quite simple. Anybody who sends me an email and says, would you please send me a copy of a digital version of your book, I will send it to them by return email.
That's
at no
wonderful.
cost, by the way.
That's wonderful. That's actually how I got in touch with you. I was watching Next Level Soul. You were on there, and you offered that book. And I had, really been into conversations with God prior to that. And I thought, well, I'm going to try this. So as I was emailing you about the potential of getting the God Solution, something said, well, ask him if he'll be on your podcast. I thought, he'll never be on my podcast. He'll say no. He'll just ignore that I asked. And something said, just ask him anyway. Ask him anyway. So I did. And when you said yes, I was kind of like, oh my goodness, he said yes. What can I do about? No, Your Highness. But anyway, so I am so privileged and honored that you are here and that we get to talk about these very important things, especially right now in this time frame when there's division and war. There's so much division in this country that for
And
me
in the world.
and in the world that it's the first time in my life that I've been so depressed by the outside circumstances of the world that I actually had to come home and just sit there and do nothing. I couldn't get my head up even to work on music, which is what I love to do. And I knew I had to do something to turn that around. So I stopped paying attention to as much as I was. And I got to tell you, because I was born purpose-driven, that when everything really started getting chaotic, I felt like I need to look at every side, everybody's side and listen, because I had to be the one to help fix it. And so my ego was getting in the way, I think, thinking I was big enough to fix anything, right? And so I was watching everything and listening to everything. And then the more I did, the more depressed I got, and because I couldn't figure out anything that I could personally do. And finally, I had to let go of it because I wasn't even functioning at night. And then I went, all right, it's just an individual thing. I need to be good to my neighbor. I need to love my students. I need to love those around me. And that's kind of where we're at here with this conversation, that it's here. Love who is in front of me, whether I agree with them or not, whether, we find a commonality or not. And, I think it's no coincidence that we're having this conversation right now. I feel like there's somebody out there that needs to hear what you've been talking about. And I think everything that has come up today has been ringing so true for me in my life, and just for my own personal healing and awakening. I don't want to go too far without talking about how you were homeless at one point. You were actually homeless. And how did you get out of being homeless? Because this show is about people finding themselves in loss of any kind. There are many kinds of loss in life, as we know. If we live long enough, we face it. And how you were able to get out of that, and what tools arrived to help you. I think you might have the answer for some people out there that are suffering and that feel like their loss is so big that there's no answer.
Well, I did have that same feeling in my life at one point. If I could it'd take maybe a minute and a half or 2 minutes to explain how it came to pass that I was homeless, because that's a big statement. I did live on the street for a year.
Wow.
Not for a couple of bad months, but for a solid year of my life. 2 weeks shy of 1 year, I was out there living on the sidewalk, sleeping on the ground, trying to find some place under some trees, sleeping in the rain, in the cold, in the snow, and in the heat of the summer outside, and going from person to person, Janelle, with my hand out, asking if you have anything, even a few coins. I remember one man said to me, all I can give you is a couple of coins right now. I don't have any cash on me, any folding money. And I said, you know what, my friend? If everybody that I asked today gave me 2 quarters, by 4:30 I could actually have a meal. Please, whatever you could spare. And by the way, while I'm talking about that, never walk down the street. Don't even go to your car in the parking lot without some folding money in your handbag or in your pocket. And if you meet somebody who really needs it, just offer it. Don't question. What are you going to do with it? Why do you want it? Why did you go? Go and get a job. I can't tell you how many times I heard that one. Just get a job. I say, oh, you think it's that easy, do you? When you haven't had a shower in 6 weeks? When your hair is down to the middle of your back because you couldn't afford a haircut if you tried. And the worst part about living on the sidewalk, living outside for a year? I don't want to be indelicate, But where do you go to the bathroom? I mean, it becomes a matter of sneaking into restaurants. Maybe you can slip into the men's room. But the manager of the restaurant would catch you more often than not and even tell you, no, don't let me call the police. Just get out of here. I don't want you panhandling the customers. And I'd have to say to the restaurant manager, oh, please, I promise I won't ask anybody for a nickel. I won't panhandle anybody, please. I just need to use the toilet, please. You have to beg to use the bathroom. So I did that for a year of my life. Now, how I got there was I had the worst 10 days that I could imagine in my life. I lost my relationship. It wasn't acrimonious. My wife and I at the time, she's still a friend, thank goodness. We were very friendly. And we managed to end our relationship on a friendly basis. So we just agreed that it really wasn't working the way we had hoped. So that was the relationship ending. So I said, okay, look, I'll get a little apartment someplace and we'll just separate. Even though we had 2 children together, but we agreed on a visitation whole schedule. So I thought, well, okay, I can do this. But Janelle, 5 days after my relationship ended, I was fired from my job. They called it downsizing. I wasn't let go because of bad performance, and quite to the contrary. In fact, my boss said, of all the people I hate to lose, you're one of the people, but I was the most recently hired, so I had no seniority. Last in, first out.
Right.
And the corporation said that they had to downsize. So now I lost my relationship and I lost my job within the same 5-day period. But wait, the universe wasn't done with me yet. I'm driving to another appointment, one of several that I had that week, to get a job interview. And I know I'm going to get the job because my last boss gave me a glowing letter of recommendation saying that I only had to be let go because of downsizing, but that I was one of his best employees. I know I'm going to get this job. I never made it to the job interview. An elderly gentleman turned his car, made a left turn in front of me. He misjudged the distance between our 2 cars, and he made a left turn right into the driver's side of my car.
Wow.
I mean, we're talking about a major accident. This wasn't a fender bender. This was an accident that destroys a person's car. My car was totaled, and my body was nearly totaled. They dragged me out of the car with a broken neck. And it wasn't a hairline fracture. I recall the wording on the medical report to this day. It said I had suffered a 3/4 inch avulsion fracture of the 7th cervical vertebrae posteriorly. In other words, a break in your neck big enough to put a pencil through.
That is something. Wow.
When I came to in the hospital, the doctor said to me, you understand, you shouldn't even be here, Mr. Walsh. 9 out of 10 people who suffer a break in their neck that severe die on the spot because of spinal cord complications. And he said, you survived. Not only did you survive, but the few who do survive such an incredible break in their neck wind up being paralyzed from the neck down. You, Mr. Walsh, have suffered neither consequence. As a doctor, I'm telling you, I'm looking at a miracle right in front of my face. So, he said to me, what do you intend to do with the rest of your life?
Whoa.
Because you've been given an incredible gift. Now, he put me in what's known as a Philadelphia collar. It's a plastic collar that you wear that holds your head up. It's a collar that holds your head up. And he said, you're not to take this collar off for any reason for at least 16 months. He said, I want your neck to fuse back to where it was. And so I don't care what you're doing, taking a shower, sleeping, Yeah, making mad, passionate love. I don't care what you're doing. You do not take this collar off for any reason until I tell you to. I said, okay, I got it. But guess what? Janelle, no one would hire me. I was going to job interviews with a glowing letter of recommendation, but no one would give me a job anywhere, and I couldn't understand. Finally, the seventh person who interviewed me said to me, Mr. Walsh, has no one told you? No one's going to hire you while you're wearing a therapeutic device around your neck. We're very clear. One wrong move on the job, and we're paying your medical bills for the next 12 years. We can't do that. Come to us when you're all in one piece again. We'd hire you in 30 seconds. Janelle, I couldn't find work anywhere. Finally, the landlord, he carried me for as many months as he could. I ran out of my savings. He said, Mr. Walsh, I got to evict you. I can't carry you for the rest of my life, hoping that you find work somewhere. I got to ask you to leave by the end of the month. I said to the guy, fair enough. Fair enough. You gave me a break for 3 months. Fair enough. But I had nowhere to go. That's how I wound up living on the sidewalk. But honestly, I thought, okay, I can do this for a couple of weeks. It's not a big deal. I can do this for a couple of weeks for a bad month. But it went on, as I said earlier, for 2 weeks shy of 1 year. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
That is some story.
I finally got a job, a part-time job. But, almost a year later, I got a weekend fill-in. He was willing to hire me to just do weekend work as a fill-in employee so he could give his regular employee weekends off. So I got a job making just enough money to afford a little one-room flat above somebody's garage. But, Janelle, I was out of the weather. And believe it or not, it had a bathroom with a shower and everything. It was a palace after being on the street for a year.
I imagine gratitude became very real at that point.
And I woke up one morning at 4:23 in the morning after I was in that little flat for a couple of months. But I was still angry with God. I thought, what have I done to deserve a life of such endless struggle? When does the struggle end? What do you want from me? And I was screaming in my head, of course. And I had a table in front of me with a yellow legal pad on it. I was making lists of things I wanted to do and where I was going to apply for a full-time job somewhere and all that. But I picked up that yellow legal pad and I started writing an angry letter to God. Dear God, what does it take to make life work? And what have I done to deserve a life of such endless struggle? And I remember writing the following words. Tell me the rules. I'll play this game. Just tell me the rules. What do you want from me? And that's when I heard a voice in my mind. Neale, do you really want answers to all of these questions? Or are you just venting? And I'm thinking, you think? Yeah, I'm venting. But if you've got answers, I'd sure as hell like to know what they are. And the voice replied, you are sure as hell, Neale, about a lot of things. But wouldn't you rather be sure as heaven? To which I wrote, what's that supposed to mean? And I was instructed, write down everything I'm telling you. And so I got answers to all the questions that I was asking. And I got answers to questions I never even thought of asking until I found myself involved in an on-paper dialogue. I wasn't trying to write a book. I never dreamt that anyone would ever see this handwritten conglomeration of notes, questions back and forth, answers. I never thought anyone would ever see it, but I was actually told in the dialogue You will make of this one day a book, and it will be accessed by many people. And I thought to myself, that's crazy. No one's going to publish a book by a guy who claims to be talking to God. It's not going to happen. So you know what? I sent a Xerox copy of my handwritten notes to a couple of publishers just to see what would. I was daring God just to see what would happen. I thought to myself, well, God, you said it would be a book. No one's going to publish a book by a guy who claims to be talking to God. So I sent it to 2 or 3 publishers. And by golly, if a relatively small publishing house on the East Coast of the United States didn't call me back, I had my phone number on the pages, and I got a call, and they said, we find this to be interesting material. We're going to publish it. I said, you're kidding me. He said, no, it's a great piece of fiction about a guy who has an argument with God. I said, no, wait a minute. You're not publishing it as a work of fiction. And the guy on the phone says, Mr. Walsch, you try to tell me you think this actually happened to you? I said, I'm not trying to tell you that. That's what actually happened. He said, well, okay, we like the material enough. I mean, it's interesting enough, but we can publish it as a nonfiction book, but you're not going to find 500 readers. I mean, people aren't going to buy a book because a guy in Oregon claims that God's talking to him. I mean, but we'll put it out just to see what happens. And that publisher was right. It was a small publishing house on the East Coast of the U.S., and he was right. It didn't find 500 readers. It found 5 million. Not bragging, just saying. That's just what happened. And the book wound up being translated into 37 languages. It was being sold in Russia, in Moscow, in Red China. It found an audience all over the world, which caused me to realize that God never intended it to be a conversation with only one person. God intended those messages to be shared by millions of people across the globe. And even more, to this very day, on a podcast by a lady named Janelle. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
That is, wow, divine intervention, and your purpose was all wrapped up in all that loss. That's so interesting. Sometimes because I've been around people with great loss in their lives, I feel like when we have great loss, that we also have evidence of great love. Because if we didn't feel great loss, then we wouldn't have had the opportunity to encounter great love. And in your loss, you had loss after loss over different areas of your life, to the point where, you ended up homeless. And I have questions. Did you have to wear that neck brace thing when you were homeless and lay out on the streets with that neck brace on?
Oh, yeah. Yes,
How
of course.
in
That
the
was the whole
world
point.
did you sleep?
You just did the best you could. Just lie yourself down.
Whoa.
People with the Philadelphia Counter, they find a way to sleep. You can't do a lot of restless moving around, and but you can find a way. You learn how to just support your head with a proper pillow or whatever you can find. In my case, I didn't have a pillow on the street, but I could take. That was the challenge for me, of course. The only way I could cushion my head enough to raise it enough to not strain that neck brace was to have a pillow. And since I couldn't find a pillow outside, I had to take off the only coat I had that I was wearing and use it as a pillow under my head, which made it interesting on the 13th of February when it was pretty cold outside in Oregon. So it was a tough way to move through life.
Sounds like it. So, this all happened. this series of loss and losses, and then this opportunity came out of all the questions that the losses brought. I think that loss can actually bring us opportunity. I say I think. I'm not positive, but I feel that if we're open, that every loss that we have can bring us an opportunity for more in our life. And that's kind of what we explore on this show, that not only does the loss, we learn a lot from the loss, and we can gain skills and tools, and we can create more of a purpose, or we can allow maybe more of a purpose. But is this how God works in our lives? Does he use everything, the losses, the wins, the everything, to bring us higher or deeper, or however we want to look at it? Is that how it works?
I like to call it life's lost and found. I think it's the lost and found. We're lost, or we suffer a loss, and then we are found, or we find something that wasn't there before we suffered the loss. Because the loss, for many people, when we suffer a severe loss, makes us stop and think, wait a minute. What's going on here? Come on. I mean, what is it? What's this all about? Come on, like I did in my life. Come on, God. What's this all about? And great loss causes people to realize, there's more going on here than meets the eye. Or as Bill said, Bill wrote in one of his plays, there are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. And he also asked the biggest question of all time: to be or not to be? That is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to rise up against a sea of troubles and by opposing to end them, to die, to sleep perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub. For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come when we have shuffled off this mortal corner. So, loss, in my experience, caused me to stop and look at my whole life, not just at what I lost, but to see what's going on here. What's this all about, this process we call life? And it's in that searching for the answers to that question that I created my life's purpose. I don't want to say that I found my life's purpose, because I don't want people to think that God gives everybody on the planet, all 8.5 billion of us, to say nothing of the gazillions of intelligent entities on other planets. God's not a career counselor. He doesn't say, Jim, you're going to play first base for the New York Yankees. Mary, you're going to be the chief executive of a large corporation. God doesn't give us a life purpose, but God gives us in my understanding at least, God gives us the freedom to create a purpose that makes sense to our soul. And it makes sense only when we realize, as I mentioned earlier in our conversation, that what I am is a soul. I'm not just simply this body with this mind. I am, in fact, a spiritual entity, having come here to the realm of the physical for a particular purpose: to declare, to express, to fulfill, to demonstrate who I really am, an individuation of divinity. Or, if I could put it in a simple word, to evolve. Oh, I've come here to evolve, to become the next grandest version. of the greatest vision ever I held about who I am. Janelle, I don't want to get into preaching here, but when that information was given to me, it changed my whole life. And I've seen it change the lives of other people. Not bragging, but I can't tell you how many letters and emails I've gotten from people saying, since reading these messages from God, my whole life has changed. So that's my message, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, it's a beautiful message, and I am drawn to it. And I was drawn to your first book. And I was also with fear and trepidation listening to it because I was raised fundamental Christian. And so that was like, oh, I better not let anyone know I'm listening to this.
Yeah, because you realize, of course, that all non-Christians are going to hell. Every Buddhist,
exactly,
every Hindu, every Muslim, every Jew, every person of any other religion or of no religion at all, you're all going to hell.
Exactly.
Because that's what God says that God wants. And that's why when I asked God, what's your most important message to the world? She said, Neale, my biggest message to the world, to repeat, you've got me all wrong. My relationship with humanity is not transactional. Stop it. Stop it. And begin by learning how to love the person on the pillow next to you. Also, not as a transaction. Not, I give you this if you give me that. And so, that's what I've learned, what I've come to understand, and what I've chosen to share. You're very kind to hear me out on all of this. I know I'm doing a lot of yakking up here. Sorry.
I love it. I have loved every moment of this. I'm inspired, and it's lifted my spirit. I've had a lot of challenges in the last 18 months, and I have to say that this is a wonderful, wonderful time for me, a wonderful moment to be able to speak with you and to hear these things. It's really resonating with me, and it gives me hope. Not that I didn't have hope before, but it's a different level of hope, where it's more, what can I say? You know how you talk about that everyone can hear from God, and that the way that you hear is a voiceless voice. And it's hope that I can speak with God personally, and that others that are listening to us right now can start to imagine that they could listen to God.
Not only can they, what's interesting, Janelle, if we could just take a few more minutes, most of the world's people understand and believe that God has talked to human beings. Moses claimed that God talked to him, and most people believed him. Jesus said that God talked to him and through him, and most people, or many billions, believed him. Muhammad, bless his holy name, said that God, Allah reveals himself through humanity and through me, and people believed him. Guess what? So male and female through the years, Mother Teresa, Teresa of Avila, Julian of Norwich, many people, male and female, have said that God spoke to them and through them. So the only question is whether God would speak to us, not just to the Pope or the Archbishop of Canterbury or the head ulama or the chief rabbi or somebody who has sacred credentials, but that God speaks to ordinary, everyday people. The answer is, of course, she does. That was the most powerful message I got in conversations with God. Neale, I talk to everybody all the time. The question is not to whom am I talking? The question is, who's listening?
The question is, who's listening? I think that's a good way to end today. Who's listening? But I want one more thing. Since you were a comedian and still are, does God have anything funny to share with us? Can you think of something God has told you in the past, or even maybe right now, that might be a funny, joyful way to end? Take your time. We like pauses. We need pauses in music. We need pauses in comedy. So
I think it's funny in a sardonic way, in an ironic way, not funny, ha ha, funny, ironic. God said, Neale, you think you're somehow more special than other people? That's pretty funny because you're not. But when you see every person you lay eyes on as being just as special as you feel that you are, it's on that day that your life will have achieved its purpose.
wow.
So that's not funny, haha, but the irony of it is, I spent my 20s, 30s, and 40s thinking that in some ways I was more special than a lot of other people. Only when I turned 50 and got to my 52nd birthday did I understand the truth of life. So now, by gosh and by golly, I can say thank you for the opportunity to spend this time with you. My dog is barking in the next room, and as usual, he's barking up the wrong tree. So I'll go pay attention to him.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for that last bit. It was ironic, and it brought tears to my eyes, but good tears. Thank you so much, Neale Donald Walsch, and Conversations with God.
It's been wonderful to be here with you. Thank you, Janelle.
Thank you. All right, you take care of yourself. Goodbye from America Lost and Found.
Bye for now.
It's hard to say